Hello, I'm Brett Knowles, and on behalf of myself and Roger Longden, I'd like to give you an overview of best practices around OKR implementation, how to make a truly sustainable OKR solution. So the method, the V2R method that we've been perfecting has four major phases to it: assess, prime, plan, and execute. Assess is all about determining, is the organization ready for OKRs? And if you're ready, then we can begin priming the pump, getting ready for it. And that really has to do with building your vision around the foundations and how Agile works in your organization. Now, in some cases, the organization is not ready for it. There might be a weak strategy document. There may be a bad culture of blame in the organization, something like that. And you need to fix those gaps before you can move forward. You can't build an OKR system on top of a culture that has bad behaviors like, blame environments. So once those gaps are closed, we can get back on and build a vision. From there, we can actually plan that OKR process, capture the strategy, detail it out, understand where the OKRs are, cascade those correctly, get them documented, and so forth. And then it's simple. You just go off and use them. Now, I say that jokingly. The execute part, of course, is always an ongoing challenge to make sure that we're practicing what we preach. In fact, in many cases, we find that there's actually gaps that we have to close during the execution process. So this is a continuous improvement activity as we go through there. So those are the major four activities. Let me now break those down in more detail. We'll start off with the assess phase. Now, the assess phase is fairly straightforward. What we're going to do is measure the presence of each of the 5 core pillars of V2R in your organization. So how present is the vision? Not how good it is, but is it actually, whatever it is, in place and being used? The values. Again, not are they the perfect values, but are the values you've agreed to in place and being exhibited by what people do, the culture, and so forth. Likewise for strategy, engagement, and overall traction. The assessment itself is really looking for the social blockers which will undermine your success. I used the example before of a blame type culture. We're going to take 2 views, top down, bottom up. What's a management assessment against those dimensions? And then what's a workforce's dimension? And understand how both work and then the overlaps and underlaps between them. Now, this is an online survey, so it doesn't take a significant chunk of your team's time. And once it's done, allows us to work with you to help prioritize the next stages of work. That's assess. Let's move on now to prime. So within prime, what we're trying to do is build that framework for OKRs. Now, there is no textbook answer. It has to look like this. And I know if you read some of the books, it looks cookie cutter, but it doesn't. Every organization is different. You have a different drumbeat. For example, when we work with a company like FedEx, they've got to redo their OKRs almost every 2 weeks because the business changes that quickly. Other organizations like major power utilities may only have to change them once a year because they're very, very steady state. So we're about getting the organization ready, and it has 2 major components. One is the designs. What's the routines and cadence you want inside your organization, who's involved, what the drumbeat is, and how does that map across the organization? You may have some departments that have to move at a faster tempo than others. And then the training. We need to make sure that the team is skilled on how to craft a great OKR. And that's more challenging than you might first think. And how do we systemize that in the organization? And that's prime. And for those of you who have read books like The 4 Disciplines of Execution, you'll see some overlap between what these different thought processes do. It's about the management practices in the organization. From there, we move on to plan. Now, there are different levels of science you can do in the plan, but the first step is to grab that corporate strategy and cascade it down. We have to cascade it down to the department level. So most of our clients do it in the following way. Step 1, we capture your current strategy in a strategy map. Now, this is an example from Southwest Airlines. The strategy has let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strategic objectives. And those objectives fit within the perspectives of what are my financial goals, customer goals, how do our internal processes have to work, and what are the enablers, or what we initially called learning and growth. And the idea is, with this overall strategy, we understand what are the key objectives and the cause and effect relationship between them, and then finally their strategic priorities. Now, we've got a number of videos on strategy mapping. The idea is we're visual learners and we need to see our priorities. And so the strategy map is about a 3-hour exercise with the leadership team to extract that from your current strategy. Very seldom do we need to create a new strategy. Our research at Harvard told us that 80% of strategies fail, not because they're not brilliant, but because they're not executed. So this is all about execution. Later on, you might want to do a strategy refresh, but we just capture the strategy du jour. Step 2 is what we call the ontology. We should be able to get the strategic objectives on the left and your core processes or departments across the top. And we should be able to score the impact of each process on each strategic objective. So in this example, air operations, the people that schedule the airplanes, have an impact of 4 out of 5 on profitability. Here they have an impact of 5 out of 5 on on-time flights. This cell is just the multiplication of impact times weighting. So this is 20 points, this is 100 points, this is 60 points, and they're colored, just conditional formatting based on strategic importance. Now, what this allows us to do is to understand where are the critical performance nodes by department. And obviously, that's where we need to focus on the OKRs. And where are the competencies that we need? We can figure out cross-functionally who needs to be involved with which of those objectives and what those OKRs look like. So this allows us to figure out where that OKR work needs to occur. And this can get cascaded down. You could repeat this same process from the department down to the team, and the team down to the individual. And this is the way that we ensure linearity. We ensure the strategy is correctly translated down the organization. Now this also builds in agile, because if I change the corporate level strategy, I can immediately map its impact all the way down to the team and individual level. So organizations can change their direction, their OKRs, on a dime, if necessary. Then what we need to do is to begin to build the OKRs and develop them through that first 90-day cycle. And this is going to feed directly into the framework we designed in the previous step, Prime. So that's the plan activity. Then finally, we have to go off and execute, get it done. Now, execute is fitting inside of your existing management practices, but we find that many clients need ongoing coaching and support around embedding these new routines and cadence, setting up the right conversations and making sure that we have the conversations in the right way at the right time with the right personal feedback. And we sometimes need to refine the OKR crafting and keeping them, for example, outcome focused. Then there's the last activity of how do we do the quarter end. The quarter end is both closing down the previous quarter and setting up the new quarter. So the execute actually fits within the sort of the 5 phases of execution. So it's about those weekly or bi-weekly meetings that we have. Think of them as like team sprints where we're having the one-to-one check-ins and so forth. You have a different meeting every quarter. Those quarterly meetings are about closing off the previous one, setting up the next quarter, and so forth. And also, this is about personal growth, coaching, and planning as we help the individuals develop faster. And then the final cycle is around what we do annually. And that's all about setting up the right plans and so forth. As a component of that coaching, there are 3 core streams. One is about culture and change management. Second is about getting goal alignment and tracking it through on an ongoing basis. And that's, I want to take a digression there for a second. Think of when you're playing any sport. On an ongoing basis, you have all sorts of stats, and it's communicated widely amongst the team, all the stats for all the players so you can see what's going on. That's what we need to move towards in goal alignment and tracking. And that allows us finally to boost management impact. of increasing the potency of what leadership does. So that's a quick overview of what the overall process looks like. Assess, prime, plan, and execute, and how we take organizations on that journey. Typically, it's about a 13-month journey to get through this loop and get the embedded practices stabilized and the skill set deeply entrenched. And we typically do it in a workshop environment so that everyone learns how to do this and it becomes self-sustaining, that you don't need outside consultants. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of what the overall methodology is and the major steps. We look forward to further conversations with you about this process.